When I was younger, I thought retirement was a math problem. How much do you have? How much do you spend? How long will it last? That is how most people are trained to think about it, and that is why so many of them get the most important part wrong. Retirement is not primarily a money problem. It is a structure problem. It is an identity problem. It is a time problem. It is a health problem. It is a health problem. And if you misunderstand that, you can arrive at retirement with a perfectly respectable account balance and still feel poor, frightened, restless, and strangely useless. I have watched that happen more times than I care to count. A man works 40 years, wakes up one Monday with no office to go to, no schedule, no one expecting anything from him. And suddenly, the freedom he imagined for decades feels less like liberation and more like falling. The paycheck stops, but that is not what unnerves him first. What unnerves him first is that the scaffolding disappears. Work had been holding up his days, work had been telling him who he was, work had been arranging his hours, his conversations, his sense of contribution, even his sense of worth. Then it ends, and now he is supposed to enjoy himself. Most people are utterly unprepared for that transition. They think retirement begins when work ends. I think retirement begins the moment you understand that no one is going to give your life shape anymore unless you build it yourself. That is the first diagnosis. The second one is even harder. Most retirees do not get into trouble because they failed to save every last dollar. They get into trouble because they carry the wrong assumptions into the last third of life. They assume they need as much money as they needed during their most expensive working years. They assume more possessions will make them feel safer. They assume their health will wait politely until they are ready to enjoy life. They assume they can postpone purpose. They assume they can delay joy. They assume they will finally live later. Later is where most dreams go to die. I want to tell you something I learned slowly and slower than I should have. Retirement does not reward accumulation nearly as much as it rewards proportion. If your life is built correctly, you need less than you think. That statement upsets a lot of people because fear sells better than proportion. Entire industries are built on frightening retirees into believing they are one unexpected bill away from disaster, unless they buy one more product, one more policy, one more complicated wrapper around their money. Now, I am not telling you to be reckless. I am not telling you to retire with no savings and a smile. I am telling you that most people imagine retirement by projecting their most stressed, most expensive, most professionally burdened years straight into old age. That is bad arithmetic because the life changes. You stop commuting. You stop buying work clothes. You stop eating convenience meals just because you are exhausted. You stop spending to medicate stress from a job you no longer have. For many people, expenses fall before they ever deliberately cut anything. Then something else happens. Time reappears, and time, used properly, is one of the most valuable anti-inflation assets a retiree has. With time, you can cook. With time, you can compare. With time, you can drive less. Rush less. Outsource less. Panic less. With time, you can live more deliberately. And deliberate living is often cheaper than frantic living. That is why I have known people with modest balances who lived remarkably rich retirements, and I have known people with millions who stayed poor. In the only way that matters, poor in spirit, poor in peace. Poor in trust, poor in the ability to enjoy what they had because fear still owned them. There is no number large enough to rescue a man from the habit of anxiety. If you do not understand that, you will spend your retirement protecting your money instead of using it to protect your life. That is backward. Money is a tool. Retirement is the phase of life when the quality of the tool matters less than the quality of the hand using it. If the hand is trembling with fear, the tool will never feel sufficient. That is why the next principle matters so much. Your health is the real account balance. I wish more people understood that earlier in youth. The body is forgiving. You can mistreat it and still get away with a great deal. You can eat badly, sleep too little, sit too much, ignore symptoms, postpone checkups, soothe yourself with sugar, alcohol, noise, and habit. And the body still reports for duty the next morning. That arrangement expires in later life. The body starts collecting what you owe. The bill comes due in stiffness, fatigue, weakness, pain, loss of balance, loss of mobility, slower recovery, reduced confidence, smaller days. And the cruelest part is that many people only begin planning their life after work at exactly the same moment their neglected body begins withdrawing options. That is why I say the real retirement plan begins in your habits, not your brokerage account. You can have enough money to travel and not enough knees to enjoy it. You can have enough money to play with your grandchildren and not enough energy to get on the floor with them. You can have enough money to explore the world and not enough cardiovascular health to walk through it. What kind of wealth is that? It is warehouse wealth, stored value with no real freedom attached to it. I have no interest in that form of wealth. I want usable wealth. Usable wealth means you can still move through your life with enough strength, balance, alertness, and resilience to convert money into living. So walk, lift something, stretch, sleep on time, get the tests. Pay attention to what the body is whispering before it begins shouting. Do not wait for crisis to teach you urgency. Too many people do. Then, once you understand that retirement is not a finish line but a transfer of responsibility, another principle becomes obvious. You must stay curious. Most people think retirement means you finally get to stop learning, stop adapting, stop being challenged, stop caring. That is not retirement. That is a slow spiritual shutdown. The mind is no different from the body in one crucial respect. Neglect weakens it. The man who stops reading because he is retired is making the same mistake as the man who stops walking because he has stopped working. He is confusing relief with decay. I have never trusted a life built around passive consumption. Not at 25, not at 95. A person who fills retirement only with television, errands, casual distraction, and the management of small comforts is not really resting. He is fading. Your mind still wants resistance. It wants ideas it has not met before. It wants friction. It wants surprise. It wants new questions that can come through history, music, language, literature, gardening, painting, science, bridge, philosophy, teaching, building, writing, mentoring, travel, faith, community, almost anything. But it must come. The curious retiree stays alive in a deeper way than the entertained retiree. Entertainment passes time. Curiosity expands it. That is a huge difference. And this brings me to something I learned with more regret than pride. Relationships are the true compounding asset. The older I got, the more I understood that nearly every professional triumph in the world goes oddly silent at night. What stays loud are the people. The people you loved well, the people you neglected, the calls you made, the visits you delayed, the apologies you withheld, the meals you missed, the stories you heard, the hands you held, the children who wanted more of your attention than your ambition allowed. That is where the accounting eventually gets honest. A man can build a fine company and still fail in the places that mattered most. I do not say that lightly. There is no annual report that can tell you whether you were fully present for the people who loved you. There is no market value that can compensate for emotional absenteeism. There is no final quarter in which you can suddenly make up for decades of divided attention. That is why I think retirement should be used not to hoard more things, but to repair and deepen human ties. Call your children. Listen longer than is convenient. Take your spouse seriously again, not as a partner in logistics, but as the person who carried life with you through all its seasons. Be with your grandchildren without turning every conversation into instruction. Become easier to be around, become more interested, become less performative. Relationships do not need your perfection. They need your presence. And presence is one of the few things retirement can finally give you in abundance, if you are wise enough to spend it there. Now let me tell you something else that most retirees only learn after hauling too much of life on their backs. Simplification is not deprivation, it is relief. People spend the first half of adulthood accumulating and the second half managing the consequences of accumulation. A bigger house, more rooms, more closets, more vehicles, more subscriptions, more storage, more paperwork, more decisions, more upkeep, more fatigue disguised as achievement, and then one day they wake up and realize they are servants to a life they designed in the name of comfort. This is one reason I have always liked simplicity more than display. Simplicity is leverage. The less your life requires, the less your life can threaten you. A smaller house can be warmer. A simpler calendar can be richer. Fewer possessions can create more breathing room. Consolidated finances can create more peace than clever financial sprawl ever will. People rarely say this out loud, but a great deal of what they own is not making them happy. It is making them busy. Retirement is not a bad time to admit that. Sell what you do not use. Clear what you do not love. Consolidate what you no longer need to scatter. Make your life easier to administer. You do not want to spend your 70s serving objects that were supposed to serve you. You also do not want to spend these years only narrowing inward. One of the most powerful things retirement can do is return a person to contribution, not contribution for a paycheck. Contribution because meaning still requires expression. This is what many people miss when they leave work. They think they have escaped responsibility. In reality, they have merely lost one of the old structures that made them feel useful, If they do not replace that structure with some form of giving, they often begin to shrink. Giving does not need billions. It needs direction. Volunteer somewhere. Mentor someone. Teach what you know. Help a neighbor fund a cause. You believe and serve where your experience is actually worth something. The strange magic of contribution is that it returns significance to the giver faster than it changes the receiver. The world may benefit from your help, but you benefit too. You stop being the center of your own shrinking concerns. You stop measuring your days only by whether they were pleasant. You start measuring them by whether they mattered. That is a far healthier scorecard, and now we come to fear, the great retirement poison. Fear of running out, fear of market losses, fear of sickness, fear of dependence, fear of being a burden, fear of looking foolish, fear of making one mistake too late in life. I understand all of it, I respect some of it, but I do not obey it. Fear is useful as a signal. It is destructive as a governor. A great many retirees end up living tiny lives, not because they truly lack the means, but because they let fear become their chief advisor. They keep too much in cash because they cannot tolerate fluctuation. Then inflation quietly steals the value instead. They stop traveling because something might happen. They stop helping because they may need every dollar later. They stop enjoying because enjoyment begins to feel irresponsible. That is not prudence. That is fear wearing the costume of prudence. Prudence is having a plan. Fear is refusing to live, even after the plan exists. There is a difference. A retiree should absolutely hold reserves. A retiree should absolutely diversify. A retiree should absolutely avoid unnecessary risk. But after that, you must still live. You cannot spend 20 years preparing to be safe and then call the preparation itself a life. I want to tell you something blunt. If you have a sound structure, if you spend below your means, if you keep a buffer, if your portfolio can carry ordinary shocks, then do not let fear confiscate experiences you already paid for with decades of labor. That leads to another hard truth. Work cannot remain your identity forever. For some people, work is not just what they did. It is who they were. The one giving advice, the one solving problems, the one being needed, the one being admired, the one being busy, the one whose days were full. Then retirement arrives, and it feels, at first, like subtraction. No title, no schedule, no hierarchy, no urgency, no applause. A lot of retirees are not poor in retirement. They are unnecessary in retirement. That feeling can do more damage than market volatility. So you must replace work identity with something sturdier, not status, purpose. Purpose is what keeps a free day from becoming an empty day. Purpose can come from family, from craft, from service, from learning, from building, from writing, from faith, from local leadership, from teaching, from mentoring, from care, from beauty, from stewardship. The form matters less than the reality. Do you still have a reason to rise? Do you still have someone or something that calls out the best part of you? That is purpose. Without it, retirement becomes a long hallway with no destination. With it, retirement becomes one of the richest periods of life. Now let me say something most wealthy people learn too late. You cannot take any of it with you. That is not a cliché. It is a final accounting rule. People act as if there will be a moral prize for leaving this world with the highest untouched balance. There will not. The money remains. You go, that is the arrangement. So be sensible, be careful, do not be reckless. But also understand that hoarding beyond purpose is a form of fear, not wisdom. If there is a trip you can take now, take it while your legs and lungs still agree. If there is a kindness you can fund now, fund it while you can still watch it help someone. If there is a memory you can create now, create it while the people you love can still share it. Money is not there to be admired. It is there to be converted into a life, not into nonsense, not into vanity, into life, experiences, generosity, relief, help, beauty, time with people, the right conversation in the right place before one of you is no longer there. That is a far better use of capital than leaving every dream in escrow for a future that may not cooperate. And finally, there is the weight almost every older person carries, unless they put it down on purpose. Regret the past becomes louder with age if you let it. The mistakes revisit you. The roads not taken. The people you hurt, the people you failed to protect, the years you spent on things that no longer look important, the courage you delayed, the love you did not show enough of, all of that is real, but retirement is not supposed to become a museum of self-punishment. You cannot relive your 20s. You cannot revisit a marriage and become instantly wiser in year 8 because you are wiser now in year 80. You cannot go back to a hospital room, a boardroom, a kitchen, a school hallway, a funeral, or a weekend you missed and replay it correctly. The only moral use of regret is extraction. Take the lesson. Leave the poison. If there is an apology to make it. If there is a reconciliation possible, attempt it. If there is a burden you can put it down, but do not make a home inside the past. The past is a teacher. It is not a retirement community. What remains yours is now. This day, this call, this meal, this walk, this decision, this hour, this chance to be gentler than you used to be. This chance to say what you avoided saying. This chance to live cleaner than you lived before. That is enough. It has to be enough because that is all anyone ever really gets. Now, if I compress everything I have learned about retirement into one blueprint, it would sound like this. You probably need less money than fear told you. You definitely need more health than ambition once allowed for. You need curiosity, or your mind will begin to close before your body does. You need people more than possessions. You need simplicity more than display. You need contribution more than endless leisure. You need prudence without surrendering to fear. You need a purpose larger than your old job title. You need to remember that money unused is not the same thing as life well lived, and you need to make peace with your past fast enough that it does not steal your remaining years. That is the blueprint, not 10 tips, not life hacks. A blueprint, retirement is not an ending if you stop treating it like a reward and start treating it like a responsibility. The responsibility is not to keep busy. The responsibility is to live intentionally, to decide what matters while you still have time to choose it. To arrange your days around the things that endure: health, love, meaning, curiosity, usefulness, presence, that is real wealth in late life. And if I were signing a final contract with my future self about retirement, it would say this: I will not spend the last third of life living by the fears of the first 2/3. I will not confuse account size with peace. I will not trade health for money and then expect money to buy the health back. I will not let work remain my only proof that I matter. I will use what I have, love who I have, and simplify what I no longer need. I will give while I can still witness the good it does. I will stop postponing life for a future that has already arrived. I will not waste years on regret when I still possess the power to live better today. I will remember that retirement is not a withdrawal from life. It is the phase when life stops hiding behind obligations and asks a harder question. Now that your time is finally yours, what will you make of it? That is the real retirement test, not whether you stopped working, whether you learned how to live.